All right, good afternoon. Thanks everybody for joining today. I appreciate those of you who have profile pictures so that it's not all completely black screens with white letters. So I'm gonna just talk today about inclusive community and how we can work together as a team to have more inclusive or the most inclusive student orgs. So I'll share my screen and this is as interactive as I can get it at this point, and we'll talk more about what that means for inclusivity. However, thank you, Jay, for turning that camera on. All right, so we're going to chat about who we are as an organization, the Succeed program on campus. We're going to do a quick introduction to accessibility through the lens of disability. And then you all are going to talk about what organizations are and what they do. And then we'll just dive into some resources and takeaways that I have for you to have more inclusive membership, have confidence in your ability, and hosting accessible, more accessible events on campus. So I do have a hyperdoc for this presentation. There's a lot of links because I'm a big fan of when you attend a presentation or a workshop that you have things that you can take away and use in the future. So the hyperdoc, those of you who aren't on your phone can scan the QR code. You can click on this link, and I can also put this in the chat for you, so you can follow along with the links. So I'm Andrew Johnson-Kleithermus. I'm Assistant Director for the Succeed program here in the College of Education at UMSL. Ms. Madeline Senior could not be here, but she's a student support specialist with our program as well, but she helped prepare this presentation. So our office and what do we do? We have 3 initiatives through our office in College of Education. We have the Succeed program, which is a 2-year certificate program for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to continue their education, access higher education, and all that we benefit from being in college. We have the LINK program, which is a support model for students with disabilities that are pursuing a degree. And then we have the PLUS program, which is an extension of Succeed, where students are accessing industry recognized credentials and also involved in really robust internship and employment, again, to kind of close that employment gap for individuals with disabilities. So through these 3 initiatives, we support students holistically in 4 main pillars of growth. We affectionately call those live, learn, work, and play. It kind of describes college, right? So we set goals and measure progress for students in higher education through these 4 pillars. Succeed students are enrolled in full credit courses and life skills courses. So they're enrolled as full-time students. 3 out of the 4 semesters, they have to be involved in work or internships. They are Tritons first. And so they have access to everything that Tritons have access to, whether that's you as clubs and organizations, fraternities and sororities, and all of the supports and resources that we have available on campus. So they're immersed in our climate and our culture. And then also over 90% of the students in Succeed, Link, and Plus live on campus and are residential students. That was a really short, like 30,000 foot view, right? That was the quickest I could possibly do that, but I appreciate your patience with me. But when we're talking about Succeed, or when we're talking about disability, rather, we're not just talking about our 3 initiatives or our 3 programs. So currently through Succeed, Link, and Plus, we're supporting 72 students campus-wide through multiple colleges. But when we're talking about disability in higher education, it's much bigger than those 72 students. So about 45% of students who identify as someone with a disability register with Disability Access Services. And so here at UMSL, each semester, Disability Access Services say they support around 450 students. Okay. So we just went from 72 that I support to 450 that Disability Access Services on campus also supports. But research and data shows that about 20% of college students are people who identify as having a disability. So for UMSL, that means we're not talking about 72 students. We're not talking about 450 students. We're talking about over 2,000, almost 3,000 students campus-wide that identify as having a disability. So when we're talking about accessibility, this quote is one that I have sourced here on the bottom of the slide, but accessibility means a person with a disability is afforded the opportunity to acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services as a person without a disability, and do so in an equally effective and equally integrated manner with substantially equivalent use of ease. A person with a disability must be able to obtain the information as fully, equally, and independently as a person without a disability. So what does that mean for us? Well, we have the Americans with Disability Act that states and tells us as a higher education institution that we as organizations, student organizations, are under the ADA, and it's up to us to provide accessible events and accessible membership. And it's also just part of our mission as a higher education institution. I won't open UMSL's missions and values, but I have it linked here for you to do so, because we as organizations should know that. All right, so now it's your turn. This is when I need some interaction from you. On the screen, and I'm going to put in the chat, is a Jamboard. For those of you who haven't used a Jamboard yet, I can't wait for you to try it because it's fun. So let me put this in the chat. So I would love for you to go to this Jamboard, and we're going to collaborate from afar, no matter where you are. We're going to be in the same place right now. We're going to collaborate on this Jamboard. The link is in the chat. So you're going to use this and tell me what are organizations in college and what do they do? And this is from your perspective, through your lens. If anybody's having trouble accessing the Jamboard, let me know.
Yeah, it looks like multiple people are.
Bummer. Let me try to fix that. All right, try that link. All right, so on the left-hand side of the screen, you should be able to pick up a sticky or a pen and write, eraser, put a sticky note. And start typing. And tell me what our organizations, what do they do?
It looks like the access is only to view it. So you have to click on the right. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I even tested this with somebody today, but apparently they were on my Google Drive, so I apologize. All right, you can click this sticky and type in a sticky. If you're really good with a mouse, you can use a pen. Right, so it's a group with shared purpose, shared values and missions, a group working together to achieve a common goal, people who are passionate about the same thing and have similar drives. Students find friends, give them a sense of community.
I tried to like get access to annotate and all that stuff, but it's not letting me do it.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm sorry, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're experiencing?
I tried to like request to be able to do more than view, and it's not allowing me to still. Like it said it sent my request, but I'm still only.
If you refresh the page, did you try that?
Let me see. Oh yeah, you're right. That's
Oh,
easy.
thank you, Gillian. I did get your request note that now that I'm looking at my email. Oh, apologize. All right, what they do, they create a sense of community, make a welcoming environment for everyone to feel comfortable, network, facilitate the ability for members to work towards shared purpose, create goals to achieve missions, host events, host meetings, take notes, social media outreach, provide information, such as registering voters, volunteers, endless possibilities. This is great. All right. You can continue to add to this Jamboard. You can even come back a few days later and take a look at these if you need inspiration for anything. We're going to move on for the purpose of time. But Jamboard is a great way, if you don't know, that's part of the Google suites. You can use this for any events. We'll talk more about that later. All right, so when we're talking about accessible events, so here's where I start giving you things to take away. So if we're still providing virtual programming, the National Endowment for the Arts has some advice and guidance for you in creating more accessible online or virtual events. Actually, I'm going to stay out of full screen. So this is just an article that's really written just for you when we're talking about streamed or live stream performances and events. And so there's some really cool resources in here for you next time you're planning a virtual event. So Needs Project is a wonderful resource for you. I can take you to that website right now. And so this is a project, but it's exclusively talking about higher education and how we can create more accessible programming, organizations, events, and even environments on campus. So one of the things that we can take from this website is an event accessibility checklist. And while you don't need to just use this one, this would be a really good model for you to use to inspire your own checklist that you use with your organization, with your team members, maybe in your officers, but really kind of going through this checklist every time you're thinking about doing an event to help you kind of plan out what it's actually going to look like and how accessible it is, such as remarketing to diverse populations for our clubs. Are we hosting an activity or an event that's in an accessible area? Are there closed captioning for any video or audio video that you're providing? So again, you don't have to use this one, but this can inspire some questions that you can ask yourself and your leadership team on creating more accessible events on campus. So that is in the HyperDoc as well. There's also an accommodation request form that you can look at. So this request form, there's different ways of doing it now. So a lot of our registration is online, right? So, but making sure that you are intentional on making sure that your attendees, your students, your peers, your Tritons, feel that you're creating a really safe space for them to ask for what they need. And so on a form like this that's available to anybody and everybody that's looking at or accessing your organization is a really great idea. Just asking, hey, we have capacity to provide what you need in order to access this event. So whether that's a Google form, a paper form, all of the above, having a way to show your peers that you want to provide whatever they need to be able to be active in your organization. So that's another resource for you to take. Anybody heard of Universal Design for Learning? Show of hands, but all I see is J, and that's it. So we're gonna say that some of you have. It's Universal Design for Learning, UDL. Thanks, Nicholas. So how can we use Universal Design for Learning as student organizations? Let's talk about it. In the hyperdoc, I've got some examples, but I wanted to show you this resource. So this
I have a question.
Yes.
So is universal design of learning similar to universal design of facilities? So like, for example, things like standing desks are great for able-bodied people in terms of ergonomics, but also, enable the height to be adjusted for like a wheelchair user. Like, is it similar in that sense that it also benefits people that don't identify as disabled or have additional special needs?
100%. So this is an idea that there's ways in which that we can design learning curriculum, teaching and environments that is accessible for all. So as organization leaders and the leadership on campus, you're always thinking about the big picture, the all, campus as a whole. We want our organizations to be accessible for everyone. So it is, just as you said, a way of approaching things universally. So imagine a world that had no stairs. Every single person should be able to get into a building when there's no stairs, right? But if there were only stairs, can everyone access a building?
Got it. And the other question I had, and I don't know if this is like too subjective or off course, but like what someone might consider accessible might not be deemed accessible to someone else. Like people might think that a sign that says special assistance available upon request is like enough to make someone feel like, okay, you can ask us, but to a person with a disability, they might feel that that's not inclusive, or like going into an office building, it could be like a gate that you have to manually ask them to open because, say, there's turnstiles that an able-bodied person can walk through, but someone with a wheelchair or a stroller would have to like ask for assistance. Like, is that also a part of this?
So when you were saying that, it made me think about universal design for learning and approaching things through this lens is helping maybe create an environment, a campus where less people need to ask for something that they need. It's automatically an environment that is accessible to more people, closer to that all. So I appreciate that comment.
Thank you.
So there's a lot of things on this website. What I wanted to highlight were just a couple things that might be really relatable for you as organization leaders. So when we're thinking about creating a space that's accessible for diverse learners or all learners, we can look at engagement and access and optimize individual choice and autonomy. So what in the world could that mean for an org leader? So what that might mean is, as an org leader, I'm going to provide multiple ways for someone to engage in my organization, to be prepared and more educated on what to expect. So yes, I'm going to have a table in the student center for the expo, but I'm also going to invite people to attend one event or one meeting with organizational leadership just to see what it's about. I'm going to post maybe some videos and some information on social media so that Tritons know what to expect and can be prepared for what they can engage in by being part of my organization or coming to my events. So allowing multiple ways for someone to engage and get prepared on what to expect. If I look at action and expression and expression and communication, use multiple medias for communication. I've provided you an example already on different ways that someone can communicate. And if I was walking the walk and talking the talk, I would have started this by saying, thank you for feeling safe to be on this Zoom. You do not have to turn your cameras on, but really helps take the nerves away from me. But to communicate, there's emojis. Please use the chat feature or feel free to unmute and communicate. Another example would be using the Jamboard. You didn't have to verbally engage with me. You didn't have to unmute or use an emoji, but we all shared our opinions and ideas and perspective on a Jamboard. And so that's a different form, a different way that I can engage communication with a group of people. Not everyone is going to feel comfortable turning their camera off. Not everybody is going to be able to type on a keyboard and tell you what they need or want to say on chat. So providing multiple ways. And before I forget, I'm going to go to my HyperDoc. If we look at action and expression again under the access, using funds as an organization or raising funds, maybe when you have meetings with your groups or even when you're hosting events on campus, have some technology available so that people have different ways to communicate and engage with you. Have PowerPoints, but have printouts of those slides. Have guided notes already for your agenda so that people can take notes instead of only listening to you or others talk through an agenda. So having various methods for that as well. So please look through this resource and I provided those examples on the HyperDoc as well. All right, we are going to move to now thinking again through the lens of your organization and your commitment to your Tritons. I want to talk through a scenario or two through the lens of disability and access. So we're not going to do breakout rooms unless y'all really want to, but I also find that quite awkward. So we can just stay as a group and I'll read this to you. So a Triton provides feedback and says, the volunteer and involvement expos are really a great idea. I'm not familiar with UMSL and the organizations on campus. So it's really beneficial. The only thing that really sucked was that I didn't get to visit some of the tents because my chair doesn't move well in wet grass. I feel like I'm missing out. So that's some feedback, hypothetical feedback that was provided back to student affairs. So think about that. And if you're planning an event that has a similar setup, give me some ideas in the chat or you can unmute and talk through what are some decisions or suggestions you can make to make our involvement in volunteer expos more accessible. Nora.
I mean, I know in previous years we had it indoors where it was at the top floor of the MSC. And so that was wheelchair accessible. I don't want to assume, sorry, but like it's accessible to all people because there's an elevator that could be used, elevator. Or you could put the tents near the sidewalks and not in the grassy areas. That could be another alternative.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What are some more ways you can make the volunteer and involvement expos more accessible with this feedback? what if I can't make it in person for whatever reason, but I still want to know what everyone else knows if they can make it?
It could be recorded or on Zoom.
Yeah, a TikTok video for every org to talk about themselves really quick. Jay, thank you, Sarah.
That was, oh my God, I'm glad you said that because I know a lot of like UMSL events in general are typically during the day, and I feel like a lot of them are doing like times that a lot of people have classes, like that 9 a.m. to like 2 p.m. time. I know I had a class like in the middle of that time gap where the involvement expo was, and so I could only like go there for like a little bit. I would have liked to stay longer to talk to more people, but I couldn't. But I know there were probably some other people who couldn't make it at all. So maybe having it like after most classes are over, like that 2 to 3 time in the future would maybe be even better to even get more people. I don't know how like they based it off of how organizations base things off of having events in terms of like time, but maybe that's just a suggestion from me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's not necessarily staying in that lens of disability, but what's the average age of an UMSL Triton?
24.
Yeah, like 24 to 27.
Mhm.
So when I was 24 and 27, which was a long time ago, I've been working full time and taking evening classes, right? But also there's, there's sometimes we can't leave our house or where we're at and what we're doing based on a number of diagnosis or disabilities or support needs. So having a way to get that information, but maybe not be in person. There are some more scenarios. Was that fun? Should we do one more? Let's do one more. I would have loved to do tie-dye t-shirts, but my mobility support needs prevented me from getting down to the ground and participating. I didn't want to inconvenience anyone, so I just turned around and left. And I did not attend the tie-dye event this year, and if you are the organization that planned that, this might be awkward, but we're going to work through it as a team. That's fine. It was wonderful, I'm sure.
It's okay. It was my office and this actually happened. And so we pivoted. So if you were at tie-dye, you can cheat and know what our office did to address the situation.
It's not cheating, it's witnessing brilliance. What are some ideas to pivot during that event?
Can you repeat the scenario again?
Absolutely. That's a good point, Jay. I'll zoom. I would have loved to tie-dye shirts, but my mobility support needs prevented me from getting down on the ground and participating. I didn't want to inconvenience anyone, so I just left.
Maybe having like plastic tables for people to do it on a table instead of like doing it on the ground. I'm not sure how the event went, but it sounds like it was mainly on the ground.
Right. Absolutely. Michaela, do you want to talk? Did you want to say something? No.
I can, yeah. So essentially what we did, because like obviously when you're thinking about tie-dye, you're thinking about the mess it makes and like how it can stain things. And so when you're looking at like a table, you have to think like, okay, what's the table? Like, what's the situation? I can't talk. What is the status of the table going to be once someone uses it to tie-dye? But so we essentially we had tablecloth that people were using like little squares of tablecloth, plastic tablecloth in the grass to tie-dye on anyways, so that like there wasn't just giant pools of tie-dye dye in the grass, but it was like catching most of it. So we just like triple wrapped one of our tables that we had brought in plastic tablecloth. And then once that individual was done tie-dyeing, we went ahead and like cleaned up that area so it wouldn't become like I don't want to sit on the ground. Like if people were, we just don't want it to get like super messy. So if someone came up that obviously wasn't going to sit on the ground or couldn't sit on the ground, we would then rewrap the table for them to use it again.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
All right. I really wanted to enjoy the kickoff, but the music was really loud. There was nowhere to hang out and chill where the music wasn't blasting and hurting me. So what are some ideas in that environment to create space for everyone? So this might be more sensory, loud noises affecting somebody's ability to participate. Oh, I need a man in the chat thanking people for participating in that way. All right, Sabrina says provide a quiet space away from the music. Thank you. Anybody else have suggestions? Earbuds? Yep, I like that, Sarah. Thank you. Anything else we can think of?
Just turning the music down a little bit. If it's just too loud.
Yeah, absolutely. We can think about, you know, setup, and we love to hear that music. But does the music always have to be where the people coming from, where the people are going to be sitting and chilling? So if we're on the first floor of the MSC by the Nosh for an event and we have music playing, what would it look like if the speakers were on the second floor rotunda? We can hear it, but no one's going to accidentally sit by it, and then it turns on and we fall out of our chairs. The music's so loud. Yeah, so think about the environment, how you can set that up in a way to be comfortable for everybody. Earbuds are a great idea, and I think that more events should provide those sensory spaces where people can still engage with programming and the event and engage with everybody that's there, but is in a space that's safer for their sensory support, with their sensory support needs. But think about how our Tritons can continue to engage if there is space provided for them, right? Anytime you're using the word separate or separate, there's another answer, but you're on the right track, right? Separate's not better. All right, thank you for doing the scenarios with me. That was fun. Breakout rooms next time, give me some advice. Those are awkward, right? Okay, all right. That's decided. No more breakout rooms ever. Okay. All right. I went really fast through the takeaways, the meat of the presentation, the tools that you are taking with you. I'm going to make sure that you have the HyperDoc available. Several of you are on it. Groovy. So we're going to do another Jamboard where you can kind of tell me what you got from your peers when they share their ideas for more inclusive events, what we thought about some of the tools that you now have access to, such as a form to request accommodations, thinking about how to set up more accessible events, aha moments you had, universal design for learning, ways in which we can provide multiple ways for someone to engage. When we're at that reminds me to bring up QR codes. We're all using those, right? We're all using QR codes. Okay, those are really, really awesome tools. All right, so I'm gonna try this again. I'm just gonna change it right now. I do thank you for your patience. I'm not gonna apologize because life happens. But thank you for your patience. Can I blame it on my age? Am I to that point yet? I probably can. No, that's no excuse. That was wrong for me to say. All right, there is the link for the last Jamboard. So this is takeaways. So maybe there's just a thought that you had during this short presentation. It could be, oh, I didn't know Succeed existed, or I'm even more prouder to be a Triton because I see that our organizations are already doing a really great job being accessible. If I've messed up on the Jamboard again, I'll keep an eye on the chat. If you can't access the Jamboard, or that's just not possible right now because you're accidentally driving, feel free to unmute or use the chat feature. Again, this Jamboard is something you can come back to later for inspiration. Oops, sorry. All right, these are wonderful so far. So thinking deeply about oh, I just lost. These are really good though. Accessibility can be many varying forms. Recognizing there's different ways to provide access. QR codes, thank you. The caps was helpful to communicate my point. Yeah, constantly improving. There's no final answer for accessibility. These are really great. So keep posting on this Jamboard. So I save these and I share them, some ideas from them with others. They help me kind of understand what is really good to present on and talk about. But again, they're really great places for inspiration. So you can come back to them anytime. We have reached question and answer based on any information we shared as a group today. Anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns?
You mentioned earlier in the meeting about a form to fill out. I missed that part. It had to do with disability access services. Could you go over that quickly again?
Absolutely. So this is an example of an accommodation request form, and not necessarily using this exact form, but this is, kind of inspiration for organizations to, I mean, you can use this, and individuals can ask for certain accommodations or supports they would benefit from having and accessing your event or organization. But the idea behind like creating a safe space and creating an environment in which our Tritons feel safe asking for what they need to be able to access your organization or the services and activities that you provide. So this is just a form that provides a space for someone to fill out things that they need to make sure are in place. Scent-free environment, something not a lot of people think about, but a sensory-rich environment isn't the most accessible environment. So wheelchair-friendly venue, accessible parking. Accessible parking is something that we don't maybe always think about when we're thinking about locations to host events. We want that nice green space or a spot big enough for the equipment or furniture that we want. But are we close to a parking lot that has accessible parking spaces? Or even, are we close to Metro? When we're talking about access for events on campus, does anyone use the shuttle service here on campus? Does anyone use the shuttle service and live on campus? So you don't leave your room on weekends because there's no shuttles? It's really hard. That's really difficult. So we have a lot of residential students on campus, and not all of them use their legs for mobility. Not all of them use wheelchairs. Our sidewalks maybe need some improvement here and there. So not having shuttle services on the weekends cuts a lot of people off from being able to go to North Campus and work, or go to North Campus and engage in activities. So what would it mean to have more weekend events on South Campus? I would love it. So thinking about transportation, that's a big one. So this is the form that could inspire you as an organization leader to think about creating what are ways in which you can create a safe space for people to share what they need to be able to participate. Any other questions, comments, concerns, reflections? That's been fantastic. One more slide. This is my favorite part. Just kidding. We take data. We want to know how we're doing informing our campus on how to create more inclusive community. And so I want to hear from you. There's a QR code on the screen that I'm sharing. There's a form hyperlinked on this slide, and I'll put this in the chat for you. So we want to know how we're doing. So please feel free to provide some feedback.